All right, hello everyone. So today we're doing a continuation of the video on the direct comparison test. So a previous video I showed how A diverges, and now we're going to work with B here, okay? All right, so again, the direct comparison test says if 0 is less than or equal to AN is less than or equal to BN. So you have two non-negative sequences. If the series BN converges, then series AN converges, and if the series AN diverges, then the series BN diverges as well. So in other words, if the bigger sequence, the series of the bigger one converges, then so does the little one, and if the little one diverges, then so does the big one, okay? So looking at B here, we have 2 to the n over 10 to the n plus cosine squared of n, the series of that. And as I said, we have to, with this test, the hardest part, excuse me, in my previous video, so the hardest part is coming up with an inequality, okay? And with fractions, often what we do is we make a fraction, we take away a term. That often helps to make an inequality. Now, in this case, I'm gonna do the following. I'm gonna say that this fraction, 2 to the n over 10 to the n plus cosine squared of n, is less than 2 to the n over 10 to the n. Because I can say this because cosine squared is always a positive expression, or 0, so not negative. Therefore, this denominator right here would be bigger than this one, and the overall fraction over here is less than this one. And just think of with that expression, what I'm getting at is like, yeah, a fifth is less than a fourth, but the 1/5, the denominator that is 5, is larger than the denominator of 1/4, which is 4, but still 1/4 is a bigger fraction. So that's the idea that's going on here. Now, you might say to yourself, well, isn't it the case that you can also say that 2 to the n over 10 to the n plus cosine squared of n is less than or equal to 2 to the n over cosine squared of n? Yeah, this would work out as well. And its thing is, especially in a calculus class, you know, there are statements that are true that you derive. However, does that mean they're going to be useful for you in the problem? Not necessarily. And that's the case here. We're going to see that this isn't going to work out too well for us in terms of just trying to find something that I know converges or diverges quickly, which is my next point. Typically, when we're working with the direct comparison test, we try to compare our series that we're trying to find the divergence of to something we know converges or diverges rather quickly. Not always going to happen, but in this case it will. That series 2 to the n over 10 to the n is equal to saying the series 2 over 10 to the n, which is 1 over 5 to the n. And yeah, and I know I have a starting place here, 1 and infinity here. I'm just not going to put them in. This is a convergent geometric series, okay? Because the r is less than 1. Okay, so r is 1/5, and technically it's the absolute value of that is less than 1. So it converges, and therefore the series 2 to the n over 10 to the n plus cosine squared of n will converge as well. Because that's what the direct comparison test says. If the bigger one converges, then so does the smaller one, okay? Now, as I said a minute ago, if I were to look at 2 to the n over cosine squared of n, that wouldn't work out too well for me. Why is that? Because I don't know if this series converges or diverges quickly here. In fact, I'm pretty sure it would actually diverge. So that doesn't help me. One, because if it's the case that it diverges, then yeah, that test says nothing to you. If the bigger one diverges, it doesn't mean anything about the smaller one. But anyways, the big point here is that I don't know whether this converges or diverges really like off the top of my head, or I can say it in a minute or two here. Now, it's going to take me some other kind of computation, some other test to work with that. So just bear that when you're doing this. Okay, so there are different ways of picking inequalities with this test. However, you kind of have to be careful on which one you pick, because one can give you a good result and another one will give you a result that doesn't lead anywhere. It's really hard to get, so just be careful with that. Okay, and then there's one more part. We'll go ahead and tackle C here. Okay, thanks for your time.